Paolo. Io qui non vedo puntatori, prova a vedere se hanno un puntatore per girare le slide, se no devi farlo tu. Vedo puntatori per girare le slide che avevamo preparato. Qui non vedo puntatori, prova a vedere se hanno un puntatore per girare le slide, se no devi farlo. Ecco questo. Vedo puntatori per girare le slide che avevamo preparato.
So Tiago, whenever you. Tiago, whenever you. Okay. Yeah. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this second MAIA Policy Roundtable. The issue that okay works. Yeah. Okay. So we start again. Well, good morning and welcome to the second roundtable of policy dialogues of MAIA. This one, it will be on transboundary collaboration and fostering knowledge exchange and innovation for best practices in climate change adaptation. We consider that the European Regions Week was a great opportunity for capitalizing the presence of the regional representatives as well as policy makers at the European level. So we are very pleased to have here the European Commission as well, and to foster also valuable discussions and exchanges on climate initiatives and action in regions and across regions. These roundtables are organized by the MAIA project. I will say a few words on the MAIA project itself. The aim of the MAIA project is a coordination support action, and the aim of the project is to foster collaboration and to transfer the knowledge of several European projects that are related to the CSA in order to make this knowledge available for the stakeholders, useful, and at the same time get feedback from them in order to improve the future possible research activities. And obviously, it is based on networking and cross-fertilisation through different activities. And one of those activities is these policy dialogues, which one of them is today. So what we want to do basically is further consolidate and activate and strengthening the transfer of the experiences of the regions at the same time that we also provide and channel the experience or the knowledge gathered by the projects. So I'm very pleased to have here these distinguished speakers from the EU commissions, from the several regions, and even from one very interesting group, which is the Transboundary Observatory of the Pyrenees, that will be also present here. So let me to introduce you as speakers. You all will have 10 minutes for your presentations, and later on we will have dialogue across the different panelists. We have to excuse Geraldine because she will have to leave shortly after the presentations are finishing. Well, we have, for today, we have Geraldine MAIA, which is the Director General of the ECOFIN-B, in charge of the investment growth and structural reforms. We have Mr. Raffaele Cattaneo, which is Undersecretary to the International and European Relations of the government of the Lombardy region. We have online, we have Mr. Simon Molins, which is a Mission Director of the Occitan region. And also online we'll have Mr. Juan Terraiz, which is a Director of the Pyrenees Climate Change Observatory. And here we also have Aitor Zulueta, which is the Director of the Vitoria-Gasteiz Environmental Studies Center. So we have regions, and we have also a combination of city with a large area as a municipality, and we also have a cross-boundary organization. So with this, I would like to invite Geraldine. You have 10 minutes to give your presentation.
Okay, many thanks. Do you hear me? I guess, yeah, because this mic seems very far away from my mouth, but as long as it works, it works. So good, even almost good afternoon to everyone. I'm coming from the European Commission, but from the DG ECFIN. So this is the perspective of under my directorate, I have one unit that deals with the economics of the climate change. So I'm going to talk to you about the aspect that we know, which is the economic angle of it. So, but I'm very pleased to hear about your experience on the ground. And then when we approach basically the economics of the climate change and the climate mitigation, what we look at different approach. We look first at the climate transition, and we say, okay, but we see this is coming. So there are two questions. What are the economic tools that we have to facilitate this transition? So in particular to support the investment that are needed to cope with that transition, and then to also keep the cost of this transition as low as possible. So that's from the transition. But then we have the other facet in a sort of way, which is the climate change. And here we look at from an economic angle to try to see, okay, what would be the cost of these climate change and the risk of it, and how can we reduce the cost of this? And I'm going to focus on this one. So if you look at the next slide, you can see that basically what in terms of studies, so there has been a study that has tried to look at what is the previous one on what are the welfare loss if we don't do anything. So because that's also a very powerful argument to push for action, is to say, well, what happens if we do nothing? So, and there has been the issue is that we've looked a bit at the literature and done some estimate ourselves. So here these are estimates from GRC, so which is a part of the commission as well, and they've estimated what is the cost of potential welfare loss if the global warming goes up to 1.5% or 2% or 3%. And you can see that the cost is big. Here in this study is about 40 billion per year more, and this is exponential because the more global warming is, and you go easily to 175 billion per year of these the losses. And where does it come from? It comes from, for example, you will have river floods that will then, or coastal flood that will inundate floods, basically the capital stock, and so damage that. You have in terms of agriculture, because you have lower result from the crop field. You can have in terms of energy supply. So then you can have, and that's interesting because north and south will have different impact. The north will see probably more energy supply because they have like a higher, so more solar supply, but at the same time, and the north and the south, on the other hand, will suffer much more. You can have drought that will also affect the crops. You can windstorm that will affect the capital stock that you have, buildings and so on and so forth. And you have also human mortality, basically because of excess heat leads to higher death. So that is. And these estimates I'm showing are, of course, considered to be a quite lower bound estimate, because here they don't estimate lots of other things, such as, for example, displaced people, air quality, conflict, and so on and so forth, the implication for some sector, in particular for tourism and so on. So it's considered to be a lower estimate. But as I said, you can still see already from this estimate that there is the more south you are going, the more the loss is high. And here we have representative for region that are considered to be south in the sense of Europe. But this this is also, and there are other estimates that are even more damaging. You have, for example, Swiss Re had done an estimation and saying that, so, and 42 billion, for example, correspond to 0.3% of GDP of the EU, but others are going to 3 to 11% of GDP by 2050 if the global warming reach 2 or 3 degrees. So clearly the consequences are large. So if you go to the next slide, you can see, and we have also estimates already. So Eurostat is the body that collects the estimate. You can see here, these are the actual costs. So this is already happening, but you can see that the trend is increasing. It doesn't show so much, but it's 2.5% per year of annual increase in the cost. And you can see that recently we had like even a peak. And so that can maybe point to even an acceleration of the cost of these climate change. So what have we done at Europe level to do that? We have, I mean, our action for the moment is essentially centered on what we call the Fit for 55. So we have adopted a package of regulation that have now been adopted recently by the co-legislator. And so we have, and the essence is to look at price, because the price, and especially from an economist point of view, I mean, price is what matters. So that, of course, if the price of energy is higher, everybody tries to consume less. So that works quite well, but also a combination of also regulatory aspects, because you cannot reach everything with the pricing, so rules, target, and so on, and also supporting measures. We have the Social Climate Fund, for example, which is will start in action and will compensate, I mean, will offer support for offsetting. So the price of I mean, the cost of these transition, we have also modernization and innovation fund, and then you have also the RF, the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which is also providing a lot of support for that. But that will not be, of course, enough. So, but I'll cover that later. So in terms of what we have also looked at is then what is the investment that are needed for the climate mitigation. So how would be, if we decarbonize the energy system, if we need to, what are the additional investment? And here we have done some modeling exercise, and you can see on the right-hand side, that is the difference between what is normal investment and what would be needed for reaching our goal of climate neutrality by 2050. And this way you can see that it's a lot of money. So it's about almost 500 billion per year of investment. And that clearly it cannot come only from the public sector. So it needs to come from the private sector. So that's what we have on climate mitigation. Now, if you look at climate adaptation, which is more what we are talking today, what the EU has done is basically in 2021, we have adopted what we call the EU adaptation strategy. And so where key principles are smarter, swifter, more systemic, and stepping up the international action. And that includes better data, because we need data. I'm going to come back on that, because that's the first step to estimate what could be the cost, the risk, but improving the adaptation strategy. We have also other part, which is adapting the climate resilience and to fit it into our national fiscal framework, and other projects such as the project today, for example, to try to foster the knowledge exchange between various actors, and notably at local level. In the one of the concrete things that we are doing in economic terms is that you have the economic governance review, which is now ongoing. So we are changing basically the rule of the fiscal, how we monitor fiscal surveillance. And here, for example, one of the aspect is also to add new reporting obligation by the member state and to integrate those climate aspects in the national fiscal framework. We have also done some analysis of the fiscal impact of these events, as I mentioned earlier. So, and the other part which is interesting is that so we have as I mentioned, the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which is a very large instrument that has been set up. And we finance about 200 billion for the moment on projects that are related to climate. So in terms of reform and investment, and the ones that are particularly focused on climate adaptation, it's about 12 billion of this. So it did include, for example, some projects like buying land for wetland restoration or flood protection measures that we are financing. But we also finance reforms, such as, for example, the obligation to have like climate adaptation checks in some legislative proposals. So that's something that has been done by Austria, or in Greece, for example, we have also a reform which includes basically prevention and management of climate risk into local urban plans. When they do plans, they need to include that. So this is the type of reform investment that we finance with this recovery and resilience facility. Now, a last aspect of it is how much is the investment needs, and that's the last slide that I have, for climate adaptation. So if you can show the last slide. So that's where it's interesting to finish, is that it's much more difficult to compute the investment need that are needed for climate adaptation than for climate change. Because, and here you have a study that's been recently done by the European Environment Agency, a report that has showed that basically a huge range of estimate of what could be the investment that are needed for that. So some study come up to 35 billion per year, up to 500 billion per year. And why is it the case? It's because, I mean, there are different reasons. One is because you have different methodology, different coverage, and so on and so forth, but also more fundamentally, because first, we don't know what is the climate, the scenario that we are looking at. I mean, are we going for warming by 1.5, 2, 3 or more? But also because if you want to compute what are the precise investment need, and you need to know very much for each sector, what are the particular, I mean, the risk for this sector to be affecting this particular situation by the climate change. So this is very complicated. So you need to know quite well each sector. So that require, and that's why it's interesting to hear from more local level. And also you need to say, okay, what are the probability of this risk to happen? And then what are the more cost efficient solution for so this is very, very difficult to estimate. And so that's why these the investment are very large. But the conclusion basically that I would want to draw today is that whatever how we look at it, so both climate just mitigation and climate adaptation require a lot of investment that cannot be, part of it will be covered by the public sector, but part of it needs to come from the private sector. But we also need much more data on this, and I think also then after having these policy recommendations, we need to have also making sure that this is adapted at local level, and that's where I think that this type of conversation really comes very well, to try to exchange and to see and to learn from the concrete implementation people, where are the issue and how Europe can help. And I will stop here.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Thank you, Geraldine, for all the insights you provided. Now we are moving to Mr. Raffaele Cattaneo, which will tell us what are the real problems in Lombardy.
Thank you so much. Thank you to invite me for this interesting policy roundtable inside the MAIA project, sharing experiences. So let me to give you an overview on the experience of my region, Lombardy region. I can talk about this issue mostly because I've been the regional minister for environment and climate since last March, and now I've been appointed in the new term as Undersecretary to the Presidency for International and European Affairs. But my experience in the last 5 years has been dedicated mostly to the issue of climate change. And so the first message I would give you, I have some slides to share with you. The first message is this. In my experience, talking about policies to tackle climate change, we usually look to mitigation more than to adaptation. We know that climate change policies need both the aspects, mitigation and adaptation. But for instance, this is the, well, when it will arrive, I can show you.
It's not.
In any case, let me go ahead. I hope you can see the slide. You have been prepared for my intervention. If I look to the experience of my region, we have a lot of documents, of planning documents, policy documents on climate change based on mitigation and adaptation. But the main targets and the most easy to understand from the people policies are related to mitigation. In our regional energy, climate and environment plan, we have been approved last December, proposed by my ministry. we have three targets to get we have three goals to get the targets of Fit for 55. So the first is a reduction of the emission of 43.8 by 2030 of the emission in the not ETS industry and sectors, because the mix between the higher decrease of the ETS sector allow us to remain around 44% of the reduction of the emission. Then we have to increase the renewable covered final energy use by 25%, 25.8%. And it is very hard to do in less than 10 years. And overall, we have to cut the final consumption of energy by 25.2% in the next 7 years. So a very hard and difficult goal to reach and to get. But all these goals are more related with mitigation than with adaptation. Then look to the experience, what is happening in Lombardy. We are every day, every year, more affected by vulnerabilities to climate change. This year we have, this summer, we have had extreme meteorological events linked in the same summer with droughts and water scarcity, and a few weeks later, floods. We have a lot of problem with the glacier meltings. We have heat island in urban areas. We have ozone pollution. So climate change is not something that will happen in the future. It's something happening every week right now. Also in a region like Lombardy. Lombardy, as you know, is the greater region in Italy, 10 million inhabitants, the most developed region, a lot of good experiences. But climate change, it's a reality who simply affect us every day more and more. So if climate change is not a future perspective, but a real and concrete event right now, adaptation, let me tell you, is more important than mitigation, because mitigation needs time. And I hope we will be able to get the goals and the target by 2030, but I'm not sure it will be so able. For instance, we have to implement something around 6-7 gigawatt of new solar, photovoltaic solar power per year in the next 7 years. It means an incredible use of land, because we need to produce 1 megawatt, we need around 1 hectare of soil. So it's not so easy to imagine where it's possible physically to put in a region so with a population so dense and a high level of urbanization like my region, a so huge quantity of space. But my first message is we need at the beginning move our vision and move our strategic and political perspective towards adaptation, not just mitigation. We are doing it since a long time, because the first documents about adaptation, the regional, what we call the guidelines for a climate change adaptation plan, came in 2012, so more than 10 years ago. And then we did a lot of strategic documents about adaptation. The regional strategy for adaptation to climate change in 2014, the regional action document on adaptation to climate change in 2015, and so on. So we have quite a large experience on strategic planning about adaptation. But does it work? So and so. Why? Because it's not so easy to understand which must be the concrete action on adaptation, because these actions are completely different in any territories. in any corner of my region, let me say, because adaptation in Milan, in the most urbanized area of the region, means some actions, and adaptation in the LP chain means other action, and adaptation in the agricultural plan of the south of Lombardy means other action too. So we need to implement a lot of concrete action, let me say, in a bottom-up perspective, not just in a top-down perspective. So when we talk about mitigation, probably it's more easy for the regional government to say we have to reduce the consumption of energy, we have to implement this number of photovoltaic plants, or to empower the renewable energy and so on. But when we talk about adaptation, it's not so simple to have clear idea of the concrete action we have to do. And all this planning document, strategic document, got a lot of important advices and suggestions from the experience of other territories, other regions, other treaties, other experiences. And this is the reason why I think that in this field, the transborder collaboration, transborder cooperation, cross-border cooperation may be really useful, because we need to share experience coming from the different realities and able to show us how it's possible to implement adaptation policies in a concrete way, not just in the political documents, but also in the concrete experience of the territories. And it's not so easy. For instance, the melting of the glaciers. But how is possible to replace what God and the nature give us for free? So the possibility to stock water in the form of ice and snow on the mountain, to use the water during the other seasons. What do we have to do? Do we have to create, I don't know, big artificial lakes to stock water on the mountain? And how does it much cost? So we have to give us a concrete idea of what adaptation means in the, let me say, daily experience. In our strategic documents, we are involving a lot of different sectors in the adaptation policies, because it's not just an issue of, let me say, the Ministry for Environment, but we have to look to, I don't know, tourism, sport, economic activities. So we need a strategy able to be spread on all the activities of the regional government. At least this is what we are doing in our experiences. So this is the reason why, unfortunately, I can't see the slides, but we are involved in a lot of international networks of regions and local authorities, like Regions 4, like Race to Resilience, Race to Zero, Under 2 Coalition, ENCORE. And we have been involved in UNFCCC negotiations, and we do a lot of bilateral meeting between regions because of the needs to understand what you are doing concretely to face and to tackle the same problems and issues that we are facing. Let me conclude, because I, at the end of my 10 minutes, with 2 policy recommendations. It seems to me that we need to work more and more, not just to share experiences, but also to develop joint climate adaptation policies cross-border, because climate change does not stop at the border of the regions or the states. And for instance, my region has quite a large border in the north, close to my house, with Switzerland. We are facing the same problem, hydrological and meteorological problem. and we can probably work together. We have river that or lakes that share Switzerland. We cannot work without a cross-border cooperation. And the second policy recommendation is that we probably need to establish, let me say in this way, to establish a regional network for climate action. We have a lot of networks, but probably we have to stress the aspect linked to climate change and mostly linked to adaptation policies. It seems to me to concretely suggest that we can use to work together in a better way to face that is probably the most important challenge for all our local governments in the next future. Thank you.
Thank you, Raffaele. Very interesting intervention with the real tangible issues. I think we can move now to Simon. He is online. He will hopefully tell us on similar problems they have in Occitan region.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well? Well, thank you for having me. So my intervention might be shorter than 10 minutes, but I will try to synthesize what you might be interested to know about in this session. So Occitanie region is a region in the southwest of France, bordering both the Pyrenees and the Mediterranean Sea. And so, as many regions in the European Union, we do have strategies that focus on climate change mitigation, as was just previously mentioned. But we have weaker strategies around adaptation to climate change, which means, as I totally agree with what was said before, that we have an emergency in acting on these adaptation strategies because we know, for two reasons. First reason is, as I mentioned, because we are a bit delayed or late in creating these adaptation strategies comparing to mitigation strategies. And also because as local governments, we have a responsibility that is focused on what's happening on our territory. And of course, we have a responsibility in climate change mitigation, given the greenhouse gas emissions that we produce on the territory, but we mostly have a responsibility towards our inhabitants in what's going to happen on the territory, because we could blame the rest of the world for not mitigating climate change, but we can only blame ourselves for not adapting our territory and preparing our populations to what we know is going to happen and to different scenarios that can happen on the adaptation. So that is why I believe that we have to work strongly on this matter as local government in the public sector. So in Occitanie, we try as many to implement a global adaptation strategy. So we are not as far advanced as regions as Catalonia, for instance, that is on this roundtable also, who has a very developed adaptation strategy. So our point is to try to help local territories like local governments, cities, and congregations of cities, but mostly local governments on our territory, and also economic sector that are the most impacted by climate change to develop their own adaptation strategy. So our objective in the trajectory is to have tools and global vulnerability assessments so that both territories and economical sectors can produce their own strategies and adapt to climate change. So we have two specific zones in the territory that are at the forefront of what we are trying to do. And they're both the Mediterranean shore and the Pyrenean mountains. On both those regions, those sectors, within the region. We have important transborder cooperations through the OPCC on the Pyrenees, and also through the Euroregion that associates us with Catalonia and the Balears, and that focuses a lot on shore and Mediterranean matters as far as climate change is concerned. And what I can say is that these cooperation structures help us go forward and advance in adaptation to climate change, because as we previously mentioned, what we face is not what we will face, and what we're already facing is not something that is specific to us, but something that can happen to regions with similar biogeographical profiles, as are the regions that we cooperate with within this transborder cooperation. And with the OPCC, we've had the chance to have the construction beforehand of an adaptation strategy for the Pyrenees that is, as is logic, a transborder strategy, because the mountains don't no borders. It is a mountain. They are mountains that we share, and they face challenges that we can share amongst the regions in the cooperation, and with Andorra, that is situated within the Pyrenees. What I can say also is that, well, as I mentioned, replicability is essential in climate change adaptation, and so we find lots of inspiration in the adaptation strategies that other regions have already developed, such as Catalonia, that is very advanced, as I mentioned it. And so it helps us through these cooperation structures and transborder cooperation to be able to inspire ourselves and have this replicability in order to build our own strategies and action. So it is a real source of inspiration, and it is a guarantee to open our minds on different ways of approaching questions, and also on different ways of approaching how we will face these challenges within the context of European cooperation. And because these transborder cooperation open us not only to just bilateral dialogues, but also to multilateral dialogues, and helps through the European Union. And that is why we are I believe most of the cooperators in the OPCC signatories to the climate change mission, to the adaptation to climate change mission of the European Commission, that help us build this network of cooperation and build action. What is a talking point from my perspective is that we can see that this transborder cooperation still faces a lack in appropriation, especially from, I believe, from French stakeholders. And as it seems that in our public institutions, we can consider that we have a network of cooperation-friendly persons who are aware to the interests of cooperation, but a global mass of our colleagues and co-workers who are yet to be convinced of the interests of cooperation, and tend to stick to a very French approach on the matters, and like only try to find solutions in what we know, or our national governments, or our local perspectives. So I believe that this is something we can still work about, so as to communicate on the benefits of these cooperations, and it is also, it's both the responsibility of our cooperation organism and of the European Union to foster us all in these different cooperations that might help us. So that is what I wanted to share with you today.
And I think I like the idea that we lost presentations and we are establishing a conversation, which is something rare those days in this type of events. So we'll move to Juan Terradez, which is in the Observatory for Climate Change of the Pyrenees, which is a very interesting organization. And I think he can give us a different perspective on how these type of organizations are supporting this transboundary cooperation.
Of course. Hi, how are you? Thank you for inviting us. Just to clarify that I'm not the director of the OPCC. I'm just a project manager. So, okay. Just let me know if you can see properly my presentation. I'm using a presentation, sorry. Okay, so yeah, my name is Juan Terradez, and I work for the working community of the Pyrenees that held an, let's say, an initiative, which is the Pyrenees Climate Change Observatory. What is this observatory? So it's a cross-border cooperation initiative for climate action, and which is driven by the 7 Pyrenean territories of France, Spain, and Andorra, as it was mentioned before. So yeah, why to cooperate? So because we believe that the Pyrenees, like all mountain regions, all these mountain ranges are very sensitive to the impacts of climate change. That's the first reason. Also because climate change impacts affect both socioeconomic but also biophysical sectors, and in a cross-cutting way, which is very important.
But we don't see the presentation in full. I think you have to push somewhere.
I don't know. No? Like this, you can see it better or not? No.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Tiago,
No?
maybe you can share, you can present.
Yeah, I sent to the organization also the presentation.
Tiago will present and you just tell him to go to the next slide.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great. Okay, so I stop sharing my screen. Okay, the next, please.
Yeah, you can continue, Juan.
Okay, next one. Next slide. Or
You're
not?
muted.
No? Strange. I'm muted right now. Wow. New. And I'm muted. You can hear me or not?
Yes, I can hear you, Juan.
Yes.
You can hear me or not?
Yes.
No?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay, so sorry about that. I don't know what is happening. So next slide, please. So yeah, because we believe that the impacts of climate change are stronger in this sensitive area. Also because climate change affects both socioeconomic and biophysical sectors in this specific cross-cutting way, and especially because we believe that joint action are much more effective than individual action. So in other words, we believe that climate change impacts no administrative borders, and we think that the cooperation is key for adapting it. So next slide, please. Also, the OPCC began its activity by creating and also consolidating a very large cross-border network of observation to observe the impacts of climate change in the Pyrenees. And little by little, with different projects, European projects, with such different Interrex projects mainly, has also specialized in the replicating successful adaptation project that we prove in different projects. Then also to promote multilateral climate governance through the mountain areas, and then also to transfer and knowledge at different levels through, for example, different tools like our map viewer that capitalize information of impacts and different indicators of climate change in different sectors from different European projects. And in the last decade, we also do a lot of experimental works and basically pilot experience, mainly in natural-based solution for to implement multi-hazard strategies to reduce natural and meteorological hazards. And that's it. So the next one, please. So here you can see that the governance scheme of the OPCC is quite complex, but at the same time is complex. This complexity that gives or legitimizes, let's say, this role as a coordinator and promoter of complementary climate actions in the Pyrenees. So basically, we can see the OPCC like a cooperation network of different actors that brings together different worlds, no? The scientific community, the land managers, policymakers, and also stakeholders, thanks to the pilot cases, etc., with the aim of generating tools and initiatives to promote climate action in this mountain range. So we can say that it brings what brings add value of the OPCC is that the governments of the 7 territories, like for example Occitanie with Simon Moulin, are part of this OPCC, also through an executive committee, but also the climate technician of these 7 territories are part of this governance through the technical committee. The idea I want to emphasize is that thanks to this governance scheme, or this governance model, we can coordinate such a mosaic of regional and climate policies that coverage in the same mountain range, besides the national strategies that are ongoing and also the European adaptation strategy. So this is the main aim of the OPCC, is at the end this, no? Try to coordinate and to complement these strategies, focusing on mountain areas topic. So next slide, please. We can say that without any doubt that the most recent milestone on climate governance in the Pyrenees is the EPIC, the Pyrenean Climate Change Strategy. This EPIC is a joint strategy, was approved by the 7 territories in 2022. And the question is why a cross-border climate change strategy if we have already a lot of strategies undergoing in these territories? So because as I said before, it's a bioregion very sensitive to the impacts of climate change. It's also shared by 7 territories. And because of that, it's essential for us to establish an adaptation priorities from a cross-border approach and in cooperation. Why? Also because we can say that in generally, the mountain areas are less worked, or let's say under addressed by national and regional climate policies in the different territories. So we believe that the EPIC is a complementary strategy to address these specific challenges of mountain areas. Next, please. So the objective of this strategy is basically to move from the theory, from the observation to the action, to the pilot cases and to the governance, under, if possible, a common framework based in cooperation, of course, and through the definition of an operational plan that implements this EPIC, this strategy. So the mantra, let's say, or the key message of the objective of the EPIC is to make the Pyrenees resilient to climate change by 2050. Next, please. So some of the special features of this strategy is that we try to follow a systemic approach, let's say, instead of a sectoral one. Because of that, we can better reflect the cross-cutting nature of climate change impacts and challenges. And we can, like this, address each key issue by considering the interaction between sectors and actors and so on. So the EPIC, we identify these 5 main sectors: climate, resilient ecosystems, adapted mountain economy, population and territory, and governance. And then we decline these systems in 15 challenges and then in 38 action lines, let's say. Next, please. So, which is important in this slide is that the EPIC was not born like all the strategies, that was not born overnight like a mushroom, but is the result of more than 10 years of networking and cooperation, followed by an intense 2 years participatory process, which was promoted by an Interreg project, which was ADAPIR, OPCC ADAPIR. And yeah, we involved more than 600 people from both parts of the boundary. And with this participatory process, we reached the definition of the EPIC, and then also the definition of the operational plan for the implementation of the strategy. This operational plan have 72 priority action and have to be implemented from now to 2030. So next, please. This is a little bit the steps we follow from the approval of the strategy to the SIP Life project, which will help us to implement the first operational plan of the strategy. So after the approval of the EPIC, we define this operational plan, and we decide to seek funding from the LIFE program, and specifically from the SIP Life project, because they are specific instruments of the Commission for the implementation of climate strategies in general. I think mitigation, but especially adaptation. So basically, just to give you some numbers, basically the entire cost of the operational plan of the EPIC is estimated in 80 million euros, but part of this operational plan will be co-financed through the LIFE SIP project, which is starting right now, and the other part through complementary funding from other European, national, and even regional funding instruments. Next, please. This is just a slide to show you a little bit the structure of the project, but which is important here is that we involve a lot of entities in this project, as is normal. And some of the partners, of the beneficiary partners, are of course the 7 regional administrations of the territory. Then we have also 39 external beneficiaries, which are NGOs, research centers, university, etc., etc. Then affiliated partners and associated partners too. Next one, please. So yeah, if I have to summarize in some key messages, what is Pyrenees for Climate integrated project, I would say that is the first SIP, Life SIP project to implement a cross-border strategy for adaptation to climate change, which is specific for a mountain bioregion, I think. So the second one is that the Pyrenees have a lot of canaries of the mine, let's say. We have the southernmost glaciers of Europe, and also the ski resorts. So it's a good point to start work here like a laboratory then for other mountain regions like the Alps. Then the Pyrenees are also home of high biodiversity and is the only mountain bioregion in Europe where Mediterranean from the east and the Atlantic from the other part. This both influence coverage in the same mountain range, let's say. So yeah, one of the key messages is that we are going to implement more than 30 pilot cases ranging from invasive alien species eradication, recovery work for soil degradation, implementation of natural-based solution for the implementation of multi-hazard strategies, and also strategies for the diversification of ski resorts. I mean, from all the 5 systems we identified in the strategy. And then also another key output we expect to have is this platform, this climate service platform, which will be connected with the Adaptation Mission platform and Climate Adapt platform, and also Copernicus, of course. And we will include then there the citizen science and citizen participation platform, even the scoreboard for the following of the strategy, or a sectoral resource platform for the different sectors. And yeah, that's it. Next, please. Yeah, this is just an example of what is the map viewer, or what we call the geoportal of the OPCC, because it's a good example of adaptation tool that we obtain through cooperation between regions, of course, and for a common goal, which is adaptation of the mountain area. You can see here that in a single source tool, we are capitalizing key information, at least from 40, I think, projects, European projects. And yeah, like this, we allow to all these results to be perpetuated beyond the life of the project. So yeah, this is a little bit. Next one, please. Some examples of the indicators we perform in cooperation, and after having all this information from all the regions, we can define common protocols to calculate indicators for present climate, future climate, fauna, flora, biophysical sectors, and socioeconomic sectors. And that's it. Thank you very much. Next slide. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Juan. I guess you were allowed to have a little bit more time because you are too many regions in there. So let's move to the last, which is the smallest area. So Aitor, please tell us about Vitoria-Gasteiz.
Thank you very much, Maria Jose. First of all, I need to give thanks to MAIA, to the project, and to all the MAIA team that is here, the people from IMEDIA, the people from VC3, the people from SPI, and also the people from Regions 4 that is not here present, but has been working in this roundtable. And I'm going to present the experience of Vitoria-Gasteiz, that is the capital city of Basque Country region. If we go to the next slide, maybe it's going, okay, I'm going to explain the general figures of Vitoria-Gasteiz, that has 257,000 inhabitants for a surface area of 276 square kilometers. That's the 90% of the population of the province of Araba is the 10% of the territory. Meanwhile, the 90% of the territory is occupied by the 10% of the population, and this is creating an inequality in the province of Vitoria-Gasteiz. Among other important details about Vitoria-Gasteiz, Vitoria was the European Green Capital in 2012, and we get the Global Green City Award in 2019. So a small city, but an important city in the area of the sustainability and the environment. Next slide, please. If possible, and for entering inside the topic of the roundtable of today. So what better than talking about the European Union missions? Vitoria-Gasteiz, again, we must tell that it's a small city, but we are integrated in the Smart Cities by 2030 mission. And also we signed the Charter of the Adaptation mission, but we are working also in some actions that could be related or could be aligned to the soil mission. Next slide, please. And for doing that, we are developing one systematic work in 3 different steps: analyze, act, and accelerate. And accelerating, we go to the next step. Thank you very much. And so we can see here the 6 different projects that are integrated. We are now focusing in the climate neutral and smart cities by 2030. 6 different areas related to sustainable energy, to urban regeneration, sustainable mobility and public space plans, circular strategy, green infrastructure, and data management. And for going to some examples about what we are doing in urban regeneration and rehabilitation, we have a very interesting project that is the project in Zaramaga neighborhood, where we are rehabilitating 4,000 houses, so private houses. Zaramaga was a neighborhood that was created in the 60s, in the past century, of course. So a huge increment of the industry in Vitoria provoked so a massive immigration to Vitoria, and that people was needing houses. It was created a city that was very friendly in terms of urban planning, but low quality houses. That houses need to go to a retrofitting program for building environment. And with this program, we are in the same way working in the mitigation and in the adaptation. So we are working for both missions in the mitigation, because actually we are working in the energetic improvement of the houses, but also we are preventing the impact of heat waves in the houses that nowadays are old, are not really good adapted for the new climate of Vitoria-Gasteiz. Going to another example in circular strategy, we are now finishing the circular economy strategy for Vitoria-Gasteiz. So our plan is to finish in this year, and next year at the starting, probably in January, we will approve the strategy. We have the plan also for integrating Vitoria in the European group of circular cities. Regarding sustainable mobility and public space plan, the city has the plan of electrifying the 100% of public transport, but we are as well working in the area of the pedestrian and the cycling mobility. Finally, regarding green infrastructure strategy is well known, the green ring of Vitoria, the Anillo Verde, but the green ring that was so a huge target of the last century must be finished. In the south of the city, we have a huge area that need to rehabilitate is contaminated soil, and so this is a project that we want to work in the next years. So it is also a project of mitigation, because we are working for the creation of carbon footprinting offsetting area, but we are adapting the city also, because we are creating so one area that could be used for the citizens in the heat wave days. Next slide, please. For all of that, we are working in terms of governance with a structure of 5 different levels. The European missions, a second level of technical administrative governance, and third level of nets, where we can integrate the media, the cities platform, and Udalsarea, that is a regional platform. A 4th level of stakeholders with different stakeholders integrated, from the economical, social, and educational stakeholders to the citizenship, and then the academia and the research centers that are also very important for the city. And the 5th level, that is the political governance, integrating this complicated network of administrations that we have in the Basque region, from the regional Basque administration to the provincial local administrations to the municipalities, apart from the national level and the European level, and all of them so integrated in the European missions. Next slide, please. And going very fast, we arrive about the final slide, where we are showing how we are doing to get all these objectives. It's a methodology with 3 different steps: communication, engagement, and climate city contract. That is the methodology that was approved in the last assembly of ICLEI in Malmo, and we are using for the implementation of all the objectives. Next slide. Just for telling you that thank you very much, and that's it.
Thank you, Aitor. I think we have been going through several levels of governance across Europe. We will move now to some sort of discussion among the panelists, and we excuse you, Geraldine. We know you're busy and you're being very patient, staying even a bit longer than you can. So thank you very much. Yeah, I think I will pose a general question to all of you to start with. I mean, my question is, we all think that transboundary cooperation is extremely important, extremely useful. And my question is only a matter of finance, or what are the other elements that will make transboundary cooperation possible in Europe? You can go general, and you can go also specifying in your own context. So, Rafael, you want to start?
No, in my opinion, it's not just a question of finance and resources. Always important, but not the key element for me to improve cross-border cooperation, but particularly talking about these issues. Why? Because moving from general, let me say, theoretical ideas to the concrete experience, first of all, we have to combine different interests. It is, in my opinion, the most important thing. For instance, as I said before, we share lakes and rivers with Switzerland. And we have different interests because our friends from Switzerland ask for a higher level of the water in the lake to support the touristic coast in the north part of the lake that ask for more water. And we, on the opposite, have the needs of the farmers in the south of the Lombardy. They need water, for instance, for their cultivations like rice, maize, and so on. And so they ask to have more water, reduce the level of the water in the lake. So the difficulty, in my opinion, in my experience, is more related to the different interests than to the financial problems. Because if we give a lot of money, we will not able to solve this interests. Then sometimes let me say we have not the administrative capacity and the administrative experience to imagine cross-border management of issues like climate adaptation and mitigation. Always they talk about multi-level governance, and I agree. This kind of issues ask for multi-level governance. But what does it mean concretely? Because in our administrative experience, we are also used to govern our territory inside the border with different level of government, normally not used to work together, but just to work inside their own competencies and remits. So it's very difficult. This is the reason why it seems to me we need good experiences, best practices to look how it's possible concretely to do it. Because if we can see, learning one the other, that some is real possible, something is possible in the reality, so we can have good experiences of cross-border cooperation, it could be very, very useful for all. Because if something is possible in the Occitan or in the Pyrenees area or in the Basque Country, well, could be also possible in Lombardy and vice versa. So it seems to me the main difficulty.
Yeah, but that's interesting because Simone was talking about their experience, for example, in the case of the Mediterranean regions, right? Do you have any insight about what are the challenges that maybe are already resolved in the case of the Mediterranean countries cooperating within the Mediterranean basin, Simone?
Well, I don't know if there are challenges that are resolved yet in on the matter. I think that that there are challenges about which we have solutions and technical actions that can be implemented, but I don't think that these solutions have yet been implemented, because it's not only a technical question; it's also a question of public policies and of collective organizations, such as, for instance, the evolution of shoreline. It requires urban planning and projecting into the coming 10 to 30 to 50 years. And at the moment, what we are concerned about is like touristic infrastructures, and it's hard to make them move. And there are also patrimonial issues if you consider like old cities or building or constructions. So I mean, technical solutions based on nature or whatever do exist, but the thing is that I couldn't really say that we have solved yet. I think we are at the beginning on the matter of adaptation more than that we are on the path of solving things. So it's not too optimistic a point of view, but I believe it can be optimistic on the matter of like we know the challenges we are facing. The thing is that we have to apply them to a more precisely local level, I believe, so that the local stakeholders can take them into account in their planning strategy. Because at the moment, it seems that there is a bit of a separation between thinkers like we do at the moment, focusing on adaptation and like seeing the things from above, and actors on the territories who have the keys but have yet to master the stakes and difficulties and the engineering in order to, and also the citizen engineering in order to make society move forward in the matters.
Yeah, I think thank you very much. I think you mentioned something in your presentation which I found very interesting. You mentioned that one of the challenges was the change in mentality that is needed for cooperation, and that and these changes are starting to be moved forward. So I think that's also a point that was quite interesting on your presentation. I guess, Juan, you are in the middle of a very difficult, governance structure that is being very useful for sharing data, for sharing experiences. But I guess the challenge now is on how you can catalyze and steer the implementation. I mean, so how you see the challenge of, implementing the plan and really moving towards a more, consistent, coherent implementation across the Pyrenees?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really challenging because, as I mentioned, I think during my presentation, the OPCC, even if it's part of a cross-border cooperation body, which is a public administration, we don't really have, let's say, competencies in managing the territory. So this is the most tricky point of this strategy, is just that. I mean, we have to implement action that are agreed, let's say, or in coordinated and that are let's say that are complementary with the ongoing strategies, but we have to do it in a way that we give like good examples or know-how by pilot cases, pilot experiences. And then it's the turn of the territories to upscale these good practices, this know-how. And I think this is the tricky point of what you asked for. And yeah, let me say one sentence that a good friend, a colleague of mine once said, that the cooperation is like to do in 2 months what you can only do in 2 days. I mean, we know that is really time consuming, but it's needed and is the key. And so, I mean, we are, let's say, starting with these processes, with this pathway of cross-border cooperation in adaptation policies. But I think it's, I mean, we do what we can, and then the things we will change little by little. And I think is, yeah, the most important thing is to maintain this commitment and of the regions that are the real competence in managing the territory. So yeah, involve these administrations and ensure their commitment, I think. And of course, find this common language, literally, but also speaking about metrics, because each region have its own system of indicators, its own system of or way to calculate methodologies. And the first step, I think, is also to agree a common methodology, just because all each strategy in the world, in adaptation strategy, I said, needs a good climate change impact vulnerability assessment. And if we don't have this kind of common metrics, it's going to be impossible to set the priorities and then to do something, no? To go into the action.
Thank you, Juan. That's
Welcome.
that's good. Thanks. I thought you're in a different situation because you are within a region which is fostering transboundary cooperation, but Vitoria is not in the border. Let's say it's not so much close to the border. So how this is can be articulated in a way that also the areas in the region which are more inner, not close to the border, can benefit from the transboundary cooperation.
Yes, and is one of the targets and that we have in the Basque region, and with the administrative architecture that we have with a lot of levels of administration. Previously, I mentioned that we have the regional administration, that we have 3 provincial local administrations, and we have the municipalities, and in the case of Araba, we have one additional level, that is the level of the small councils that are dependent from the municipalities. So it's very complicated, this transborder and trans-administration cooperation. And so I would like to emphasize in the word cooperation, that for me means that so operation at the same level. So if we want to work at the same level in cooperation, so more than financial support, we need trust. So if we have no trust, if there is no trust among the different so participants or the different stakeholders that are in a project, so it's very complicated to progress with the transborder cooperation. So this is one was the main conclusion actually yesterday during the opening session of this week at the European Parliament, after the intervention of a lot of commissioners, members of the Committee of the Regions, mayors, and other speakers. So the main conclusion was that more important than the money is the trust, because if there is not mutual trust among the different parts that taking part in the projects, there is not cooperation. There is not transborder cooperation, and there is not cooperation among the different levels of the administration. And what's the result of this no cooperation or no trust? And efficiency. So we have not efficiency in the projects. So maybe we need funds for the projects that I mentioned. For example, the rehabilitation of a big urban area is needing money, a lot of money, but it's needing of trust, because okay, we cannot work with the schema. I get the money, I develop the project, and later I am monitored, but the one that give me the money. So this is not cooperation.
Yeah, I mean, we catch up on the time, I guess. So maybe we can open to questions if is someone in the audience or online. Is any question? No. I guess, Tiago, you can, because we had this first policy dialogue, and I think some of the messages that emerged from the first, it may be interesting also to be brought into here. And as far as my recollection was, you know, there are also some challenges which are related to the issue, not only to the financial problems, but also the bureaucracy, which is related to the governance. And we have been seeing that there are very different type of governance across the regions. And, you know, this is it's nice to have trust, but it's not only about trust. It's about how those governance structures can talk to each other. And I wonder if someone has an experience about starting to develop these sorts of conversations, bureaucratic conversations across borders. Not yet, I guess, but that's, I guess, a challenge we have to resolve. And I guess nobody mentioned, but the cultural differences are also important, I guess, in this context. In some cases, culture is not is across the border. So, you know, for example, Catalonia, Occitan, the Basque country with Aquitania. But sometimes the border is also defined differences in culture. So not all regions can be addressed in the same way. So how you foreseen, I think, Rafael, you mentioned two policy recommendations. One was a regional network, but can you elaborate a bit more about what you will understand as a regional network? A regional network of regions that have similar problems, or a regional network related to exploring better this governance and how to articulate it better? What will be the objective for you for a regional network, which is one of your recommendations?
Well, first of all, I'd say that I think all the regions all around the world face similar problems. I've been last week in Thailand and Vienna, on the opposite side of the globe, but they are facing exactly the same problem we are facing here. So climate change, energy transition, sustainability. My opinion, as I said before, the differences are not in the problems we are trying to tackle and to solve. Differences are in the solution. So the network must be to compare solution and to learn one the other. And it's not, it's not just a theory, because we need model to understand better what is happening in the territories. For instance, all the urban planning, the territorial planning in my country, I don't know if it's the same in Spanish, but probably yes, is based on information, for instance, about extreme weather events that comes from the past, and the situation today is completely different. And so we are preparing rules for the land use, for instance, based on wrong information. For instance, information that expect that some events can come back every century, and now they come back every 2 years. Mm-hmm. So we have to change the way to do. This summer, we have had a lot of extreme weather event, mostly with hail. And hail means block of ice,
half a kilo,
like a tennis ball. And we have villages and towns where more than 90% of the roof have been affected. Affected means that the tiles have been destroyed by the hail. And we have a place where we faced 2 extreme events, one on Friday, and some families immediately intervened to change the tiles to restore the roof during Saturday and Sunday. And the next event happens on Monday. So they repair and fix the roof, and then they have to repair once again 2 days later. How does it mean about adaptation? That we have to change the rules on the materials for the tiles of the roof? Probably yes. So we have to arrive to this level of our experiences, in my opinion. Because of the opposite, we remain on theoretical discussions, talking about, probably also it could be useful because we need also to probably find a common vision about how we can create strategic plan able to intervene in the situation we are talking about. But we have to move also to this more concrete level. This is, in my opinion, the key issue.
Well, I think we are on time. Thank you very much. I got some few conclusions that I want to share now to conclude the event. It was obvious from the intervention at the beginning that finance is going to be a big issue, that adaptation is far prominent now, even can be far more prominent than mitigation in terms of cost. And the public sector won't be able to cope with all this cost. And that was obvious from the first presentation. Then, of course, yeah, and that's also obvious in terms of the regions. I mean, the regions, both regions, or the three regions, even the Pyrenees, what are saying is that adaptation is becoming an urgent issue. So we have to adapt now. We cannot wait. And that requires a much better balance between the resources which are being distributed between adaptation and mitigation. Adaptation is different than mitigation. So bottom up is very important. We cannot generalize or standardize adaptation solutions. The problems are similar, but the solutions need to be adapted to the local context in order to be successful. But yet it's important to share experiences, because either way we cannot implement the same solution, but we can learn from one solution to be adapted to another place, and that's extremely important. There have been some recommendations made in practical terms of even developing joint policies across regions, which I think is a big challenge, but it's good that some policymakers are saying that. And it is also important to create more networks where regions can share and can experiment together. There are means provided at the local, at the regional and the national level, and even the European level, but they have to be provided in a coherent manner towards the same objective. Well, there are interesting multilateral cooperation structures like the observatory in the Pyrenees, but is again still facing challenges in terms that they don't have the capacity to implement. But it is very important to recognize that the efforts that are done already are important, sharing data, harmonizing the measurements, and being able to share information that can be used across borders, which will foster the coherency of the policies, even if it's not possible immediately to develop cross-border policies. And I think there were some nice words said in terms of that finance is not enough. We have the technical solutions, but they need to be adapted. And for that, we may need to have more trustful discussions across governance structures, regions, and even across actors in the territory. So in essence, the final conclusion I get is that this type of exchanges are very important and have to be brought into the ground, have to be more broad. They have to be including other actors in addition to policymakers, which we were very successfully here gathering together. But I guess in the next roundtable, we may bring other actors, like, for example, private sector, which they may have to say a lot also in these discussions, and also some other levels of governance which are active more close to the ground, like citizen associations that are implementing already some voluntary informal actions that can support the adaptation strategies. So thank you very much again for your patience, for your words, and for your knowledge. And thanks to the team that was behind the technology, which I have to recognize I'm completely ignorant of it, and overcome the technological challenges. Santiago, Ichazo, Anna, Mariana, which is online because she wanted to make sure everything was going well. So Regions 4, BC3, and SPM.
Thank you.